Hi, today I want to show you how you can build your own AI micro SaaS without writing any code using no-code tools like Toddle and Xano. Now the cool thing about that is you won't need to set up any complex structure to get this working. This course is completely beginner friendly, and at the end of that video you'll have your own AI micro SaaS fully working. And what are we building today? We're building an AI SaaS that goes on the user's website, scrapes their website content, supplies the website content to an AI model, and it streams in real time, like ChatGPT, it streams in real time the blog post in Markdown that the user can copy, and then post on their website and share with their friends and all that cool stuff. So that's pretty exciting. This is something that's very advanced, but it is super simple to do with visual development, especially with Toddle and a little bit of Xano to protect our APIs and do that data security kind of stuff. But it's super simple. We'll start step by step. So the first step here is to kind of like connect the first API, which is scraping the website to be Markdown inside of Toddle. So let's go inside of Toddle, and first of all, now I mentioned the word API, you may ask yourself, what the heck is an API? Now, an API is true magic. An API is a service, or is a protocol, think of it like this. You have a server, you use that API to communicate to that server, and you have a magic server that does something that you need it to do. Let me give you an example. For example, there's this cool website that gives you free APIs. It's called Web Page to Markdown, right? If I were to copy that link here for this public free API, right? And I have this thing here. We have this main domain of this main app URL of the domain of the URL. We have a question mark. We call this a query parameter. This is the key. Is the name URL, and this will equal something. So in this example, I could do http equals https://toddle.com, right? If I were to put that in here, this API would say failed to fetch because I need to have that https toddle.dev. Wrong one. Sorry. They don't have .com. Somebody else already bought that. If we copy that, put it in here, toddle.dev, right? It'll take a little bit, and you see this web address did magic. It went to the Toddle website and it scraped the content that it could find on the main page. Now here's the thing. This is the data that we want to put into our AI model to make it work. Here you go. So that's how that works. That's super simple. Let's connect this API with Toddle. So we'll copy this URL inside of here, right? And we're clicking outside of here. And by the way, if you go to this website here, freepublicapis.com/webpage to markdown, that's where you get that information here, right? But let's connect this URL, this functionality with our Toddle app. So for that, I'm going to click outside of the canvas. We see the section here, APIs, inside of Toddle. We'll click on the plus. Then we have paste URL. We'll paste our URL. Now this is with sample data. We want to make this dynamic. We'll click on continue. Here you go. And now you see it, we have like the test data inside of here. So we want to make this dynamic now. But first, let's call this scraper. That's the API that does the scraping magic. Now that doesn't have an API key, so we can just expose this on the front end for simplification purposes. Here you go. Now in here, I kind of like want a form where the user inputs their address and then it scrapes it and then it uses AI to do that. So to have that working, we're just simply going to click on the plus. We're going to add a form. So, that we can submit that form. Inside of that form, I want to put an input. Here you go. And I want to go on this input, and I want to make this an URL input. So I go on that input, I go on attributes, I go on type, I go on, scroll down a little bit, I go on URL, and now we have a URL input. And I can go in here and update the placeholder. I can do https://example.com. Here you go. Let's go to styling. And now we kind of like want to make this work with our UI. So we go with the background color here. We click on the stars, so we have a pre-made color palette. If we click on here, we can select our own ones. But I like the pre-made color palettes. Let's click on the star thing, and now we just use gray 100. Here you go. So now we can see a clear distinction. Now if I start typing in here, HTT, we see, okay, the text is still gray. So we go inside of this input. We use the sidebar to navigate here, and we're going to click on text, color, star, and we'll make that gray 700. Here you go. So now when I type HTTPS, we can see this inputs. Now we have also a focus animation here, right? When I click on the focus state, we see it does that animation here, and we see we got the color. I can go in here and change the outline to be gray 300 as an example. So it looks like this. Way nicer with our theme. It looks more minimal. That's how we can do those things too. Now, in Toddle, I can also zoom in, which is pretty nice. And, you know, this is kind of like scraping the website. So how about we go inside of this form and we'll add a button so we can submit the form. Now, this is a button in a form. We need to give this button, since it should be a submit button, a submit attribute. Let's go inside of this button here. We have the button selected. We go on attributes. We go on attributes, attributes. We add an attribute of type. We'll click on enter, and we make this submit. Here you go. Now, this will submit that. Let's call this, let's call this go for now, and then we'll figure out something better. So we scrape the website inside of here, right? Then we also want to have a text area actually, so that people can add their prompt, what they want the AI to write about from the data it got on their website. So let's add in here a text area, just like that. Got a text area inside of here. Now the text area, we want to style that as well. So we go on background. We'll make it gray 200, right? Or I think we had gray 100. And then we'll make that text gray 700. Here we go. And then we go in here and we say system prompt. There you have it. Now we move this go button down here. And that's how we kind of like got the structure, right? And we can now say generate block post. Now we want to go to this button, make it width. Here you go. We do this in here. We go on the button with 100%. We do height, 3 rem. Those are just like the units we use. We don't use pixels. We use rems. Like you just try 1 rem. You see, okay, that's short. Let's do 2 rem. Okay, 3 rem, right? We do it in rems. And with rems, you can also do like half rems, like 3.5 rem or something. But 3 rem is good enough. Now in here, we have the layout section, right? Because it's top left. We can go in here and make the center. There you have it. Now, we could, for best practices, give this a 1 rem side padding and 1 rem top and bottom, even though it wouldn't be affected because it's centered, but this is just for best practices. Now the border, in here we want the border 8 pixels. We do borders in pixels, but units in rems, where we have padding or gaps or something. Now, we got that form styled. Now we see they all kind of like kiss each other. So I go to the form inside of here, and I go and add a gap of 1 rem, for example, or better 0.5 rem. And now you see this looks way nicer. They're nicely under each other. Now we have this one thing where like this does this here, right? Not that cool. So for this, we need some custom CSS, but that's very simple, so bear with me. Let's click inside of the text area. Let's go to the style panel. Let's scroll down here, and we see this thing called CSS all the way down here. We'll click on that. We add a new line, and we add resizable, or actually it's resize colon none. We'll click outside of it. That removed the resize functionality. Again, it's resize colon none right in here. Beautiful. Now that looks really good. Actually, how about we make this black? Let's make this gray 800, or how about we make this gray 900? We'll add a shadow to this. We'll move it, we can move the shadow how we want. Move it a little bit down here. And then let's make a blur of 13, right? Move it a little bit like that. Beautiful. And now we got this nice, it's really standing out. I really like that. That looks really good. Here you go. So we got our super stylish, nice looking AI form inside of here where they can put their URL and all of that. And then it will write a blog post for them. So here you go. Now, the question is, we have this API here, right? That scrapes the website, the content of the website, right? Now, this is now auto fetch. I'm going to talk about that later a little bit. So there are a few things. First, we want to remove auto fetch. Auto fetch does server-side rendering, which means the moment the website loads, before the website is served to the user, the API loads. It gets that data. But we want this to get it the moment the user, types something in, for example, right? So what we want to do in this example, we want to turn it off, right? We want to turn off auto fetch. We want to go to this input now, and we want to ask ourselves the question, how do we get the data that is put in this input inside of this parameter here of the API where it needs to be dynamically in? The answer to that question are variables. So let's go on the side panel here, make sure you're outside of the canvas, click on variables. Let's create a variable called URL. Initial value will be empty. That's perfect. Let's close this. Now we go inside of this input field. We go on attributes and we see bind to variable. We click inside of here and bind it to the URL variable. Now if I start typing in here https://xano.com as an example, and I click outside of here, we look at our variable and we see we got Xano.com inside of here. Now that we got that bound to the variable, we can go to APIs, we can go to parameters, and now you see this query parameter here, which is sending the data to our API, which is like an automation service that does something for us. We can go on FX, and we can see this value here. We click on here, and now we see the variable. We click on the variable to make it dynamic, and now you see it gets the data from the variable. If I were to click in here and run this again, you'll see that this scraped the whole Xano website as an example. Isn't that cool? Here you go. So now we kind of want to run this when the user inputs something, because right now this API doesn't run automatically. We need to trigger it. So we can go to this input here, and on event, we can make an event on change. That's a little bit better because on input, we would run this with every character. So let's go in this input here. Let's look at input, change. On change, we're going to, you see here, API. We're going to run this API. That's it for now. We're going to go on done. And then, let's reload that page. And let's see how that API is working, if it's doing something. Now, let's go inside of here. Let's look at the API. There is no response. It didn't run yet. Now let's start typing https://example.com. I'll click outside of it, right? And now with the clicking outside of it, it scraped the website. Here you go. Now we got that data response. I would love to show a preview for the domain the user has entered inside of here. So let me show you how we can do that to make it look more interesting. Okay, let me give you an example here. We could go and go to this form as an example, right? And we could wrap this in an element. That's a div block. It's just, a normal block. That's like how we build websites or web apps. We go inside of this div block. In this div block, I add another div block that will be under here, right? And then in this one, I'll just add text. So I create like a text area. Now I can go in this div. I can give it a side padding of 0.75 rem and a top and bottom padding of 0.75 rem. Here you go. Now I can go with the background color. The background color can be, as an example, gray 200, or it could be gray 100. I can add a border to this if I want to. I can make a border here 1 pixel, gray 200, or maybe gray 300. I can give it here we go. Where do we have it? Border radius of 8 pixels. So I kind of like have my logs inside of here. And then I could go in here and make this size 13 pixels. So it's just like a little bit. Here you go. And then I would go inside of here and I can give this a gap of 1 rem. So we have like a little space down here, right? So now we kind of like have a little preview window of what we scraped. We could go in this text, and now we see we got this fx here on the text. We can go inside of that text with the fx, and we can click in here, go to the scraper API, and return the data. Let's do this again. We go to the API of scraper. Now we got is loading, data, error, response. We need to go to data. That's the response of the API content. Now you see it's kind of like does that. So what we want to do is we want to go to this div. We want to add layout, overflow X, scroll, overflow Y, scroll. And then we want to give this a fixed width. Now what does this have? This is like 256 pixels. We add the same thing on here. Here you go. And then we add a maximum height of, for example, 4 rem or 6 rem. I just want this to be like a nice preview. The text can be smaller. I just want to visualize that we did scrape something, that this is like a scraping preview, if that makes sense. Here you go. And this height in here should actually be max height, right? So if there is nothing, it'll be smaller. Here you go. That's, how we get that response of what this micro SaaS scraped for our user. So that's how we do that. Here you go. Now it just says null. So let's go on FX. We want to make the text conditional. Now this is where we start building some logic, but don't get scared. It's pretty simple. Now we got the scraper inside of here. We want to copy this. We want to add an if statement. We'll paste this in here. Now the question that we want to ask, if this has content in it, I want to return the content. If this doesn't have content in it, I want to return, please enter an URL to see the scraped content in here or something like that. Now you see this doesn't have content. It's saying null. So we can look for equals, and now don't type null inside of here. That will be false even though it's true, because in here you have the text of null, but null itself is a data type. So you go on the plus and you type null inside of here, and then it's going to be true. And now if this is null, we're going to say no data available yet. No data available yet. Add a URL. Here you go. No data available yet. Add a URL. And then on else, we're going to return the API response of scraper data, as you can see. So now that should do it. Now it says no data available yet. Add a URL. Now I add my URL, https://xano.com. I'll click outside of it. And now you see I got the data scraped. Here you go. Look at that. So now we got that working. And now we want to have the user be able to add their system prompt so we can send it to an AI model to generate an AI blog post, right? We need to do the same thing again. Click outside of the canvas. go to variables, create a variable called prompt. We'll make that empty. We go inside of that text area. We go on attributes. We go to bind to variable, and we bind it to the prompt variable. Now that way, we're going to get the data that was inputted inside of that input field. So if that prompt is hello world, right? And I look at my prompt variable, we're going to see hello world right inside of here. Look how simple that is. Pretty simple. So now the next thing that we want to do is we now want to kind of like start, like sending that AI prompt to an actual AI model. That's very exciting. So let's do this right now. So for that, we need to use an API. We need to use an AI model. Now the thing is, they cost money to run, and they give us something called an API key. Now the question is, or the problem is, whoever has this API key has access to our account and can spend on our AI API account whatever they want to. So it is very important that we protect our API key. That's very important because we don't want them to steal our money or to spend that credits for their business on our credit card. So to safeguard this a little bit, we would do a principle that we call proxying. Now, don't get scared. It's super simple. The idea is we use a backend, a server, to run the AI model on. And then instead of having the AI model connected to our front end, which the user can, do things like inspect elements here, like inspect elements, what they would probably do is they would go on console, they would type something in like window, and then they would look at the window, and then they would find your API key. Don't ask me why I know how to do that. It's just, for educational purposes. But this is kind of like how hackers can do that. They can, everybody with a little bit technical expertise in ChatGPT can figure out your API key if you put it on the front end, right? Now, we don't want to do that. We want to save that. So we're going to proxy the request through a backend. Now, backend sounds like code. You need to be a cybersecurity expert to manage that. You don't need to, because there's something called Xano, which is a no-code backend. Let's look at Xano real quick. So Xano.com is a no-code backend. It's an enterprise-grade backend. All the big Fortune 500 companies use it, or most of them, and they are no-code. That's exactly what we want to do. And they work with AI models and AI streaming and all that kind of stuff. And now they also have functionality where you can build a database with AI. You don't even need to build it yourself. And they integrate, as you can see, beautifully, natively with Toddle. So let's set this up with Xano right now. Let's log into the Xano account. Here you go. And the only thing we need to do for this one is go to the API section inside of here. An API is kind of like a server that we're spinning up that does something specific, executes a workflow of logic. Think of it like Zapier for enterprise needs, or Zapier on steroids. Here you go. And way cheaper, because in Xano you pay for the server and not for the times the server runs. But now we're in our API groups. So we want to go and add API group. We create a new API group for every new project that we work on inside of Xano. Let's create one called AI blog post / scraper. Here you go. We want to do Swagger requires token. We'll save that. Here you go. Now we have our folder for this project. Now we go and add API endpoint. That's actually how we add that API that does it. Let's click on side of here. Now we want to go to custom endpoint. This will be a post request. So let me explain to you what the difference is between post and get. Get is if you're taking data from a server. Post is if you are sending data that was newly created to a server. So get is getting existing data from a server. Post is sending new data to a server. So in this example, we're kind of like getting data from ChatGPT or from our AI model. But in reality is we are creating a new entry inside of their database. We're sending them a prompt, which is new data. So this is why this falls under making a post call, because we are sending it new data. Every prompt is different than the other one, right? And then it gives us a response. Posts do have a response, so don't get worried about that. They do send us data back. It's just we have to use the post type because that rule applies here. So let's give it a name, right? Let's call that proxy. Or actually, we can call that proxy. We're building a proxy server here. Now, you may want to add authentication here and have users log in with something like Google Auth or, like with email or with password or something like this, or with Apple, right? Now, we're not going to talk about this on YouTube because those things are very complex. Xano has great tutorials on how to set those things up. We have great courses at nocodeprocode.com on how to set that up. Link is in the description. It costs, of course, money. It's $79 a month. If you're looking for free resources, I also made a video about how to set up basic authentication inside of Toddle and Xano. It doesn't include things like, protecting your APIs or making sure that people, don't misuse your APIs, or that, that hackers can't get fully in there and all that stuff, and how you set that things up with Stripe to have them buy new credits. Those things are very complex. We have courses in there that are over 30 hours that talk about those things. Now, you won't see a 30-hour video on YouTube. Just wanted to put that on a side note. You don't have to join if you don't want to. They're great free resources on YouTube, and I'm happy to be one of them in here. But I just want to put that information out there so that you know that this is something that is out there, right? We have that courses. We have that templates in there. If you want to do it or not, that's up to you. But that was enough advertisement. You don't need to join if you don't want to. But here you go. We have authentication. We just do the disabled for now, as we just built this as a proxy to add additional security to what we're doing in here. Let's save this. Now you're going to be greeted with something that looks completely different than Zapier, and you're going to freak out, but don't freak out. It's a little bit different. Xano doesn't go like this. Xano goes linear like this. It is different, certainly, but it is still simple. So we want to think with Xano in inputs and outputs. What do we need to input? We need to input the kind of data that our front end receives, because this is relevant for our API, right? So we have the content and the URL, because we do the scraping on the content inside of Toddle, right? We can also do that in Xano, but not needed. We do that inside of Toddle, right? So we need to send the content, the markdown content, and the prompt. So let's set our Xano proxy to do that. Let's add an input inside of here that will be text, and we'll call that content. We'll add that input to our API. Now we add a new input, and we'll call this input prompt. That will be also text. We'll add that input, and now we have the content and the prompt. Now we need to make an API call to our API provider. And to make it even cooler, I want to stream the AI response in real time back. So let's pause here a little bit. Let's go on the three dots on the top right corner, and let's turn this into a streaming API. So we get that inside of Toddle. Let's click on the three dots. Let's go on settings. Now inside of settings, we want to scroll down, and we see this thing here called response type. You want to go to response type. You want to click inside of here, and you want to make this stream. Very important. Now we're going to click on save, and now we have a stream. Now you see the response disappeared. Don't get scared. We're going to work on that. But that is how that works. We now need to add a function to call the AI. We're going to use this through the API that our AI provides us. That's their application programming interface. What does that mean in English? It is the kind of technology they give us access to communicate with the AI server. So let's add a function inside of here. Now what we want to do is we see this thing called here external API request. You can also find it by searching, but we have external API request. In most instances, we would use inside of Xano external API request. I hope you haven't clicked on it yet, because I'm going to make some more explanation why we're not going to use it in this example. External API request is a delayed response. That means I'm sending data to the server, I'm waiting 20 seconds, I'm getting server data back. We want this to stream and we want this to be real time. So what we're going to do inside of here that is a little bit different, we're going to look for streaming. And we're going to make a streaming API request because that's different kind of technology that sends a character back and sends a character back and it kind of like streams back. It starts the moment I send it. Let's click inside of here. And now we have a streaming API request. Now we see this button, import curl. We'll click on here, and now this lets us import a curl or shell command. Now, we have no idea what that is, but this is what ChatGPT and all those APIs gives you, that crazy code thing. We're going to paste that in here, and Xano is going to work with it automatically. So now for this, we're going to use Hyperbolic AI. It's an alternative to Replicate that's pretty cheap, and they give you $10 of free credits that pretty much last you a lifetime. So in this example, I'm using Reflection. That's a cool new AI model. And we can set max tokens inside of here. Let's don't make this too much. Let's make it 1,000. And temperature is good. So we want to click on API inside of here. And we see this bunch of code in here, right? We're at the wrong one. We also see TypeScript, but we need to have CURL, curl. That's exactly what we need. So now we got system and we got user. System prompt is any prompt that we can add to this, and user is the user's question. I'm going to look at that a little bit later once we copy this over to Xano, but this is important to keep in mind. This is the prompt we give the AI on what to do, and this is the prompt of the user question here. Looks scary, but it is not, especially when Xano parses it. It's going to look way easier and no code. Let's copy this. Let's go back to Xano. And we see this curl command. We'll paste it inside of here and click on save. Oh, no, wrong. My bad. Please excuse me. Let's go on import curl. We'll paste it in here. We'll scroll down and we have to click on import. Now you see Xano parsed this in their no-code structure. So we look at colorful blocks rather than, looking at, here you go, we also have our API key. Now, this is the idea. We want this API key to be on the server and not on the front end because that's how people can figure it out. We need to add more security measurements here, but one step at a time. Now, what we want to do, we simply want to customize this. Inside of here, you are a world-class AI system, all that stuff. This would be the prompt we give the AI. Inside of this section here, if I click inside of here and would expand this, it's pretty small. Here you go. Oh, I can't make this bigger. Here you go. Here you go. So in here, I would do my prompt engineering, right? So through every query inside of thinking tags and provide your final response inside output tags. That kind of stuff. If you detect that you made a mistake in your reasoning at the end, correct yourself in a side reflection tag. So this AI model here that we're going to use, this is kind of like the prompt. We could add something in here. Let's say, like you are an AI model who writes blog posts or something. This is kind of like the system mode, right? I'm going to remove this here. I'm going to say you are a smart AI model as a bad prompt. I mean, there's so many people of you watching this that are better in prompt engineering than I am. Please let me know your favorite prompt in the comments below. But this is just I'm the technical one. You got to work with your prompts here. That's how you add value to this thing that you're building, right? You can sell your prompts if you pack it into a nice package of having it being a SaaS. But you are a smart AI model that writes amazing blog posts based on following blog posts for following website, and then we'll add a colon here and we add this kind of thing, right? We do a curly brace and we add content inside of here. Now, what is this? You probably know those emails that you sometimes get. Hello, first name. We want to invite you to product tag. And sometimes someone, they don't have your email, and then you get like, hello, name, and not like, hey, Mike. You get like, hey, name. This is kind of like what we're doing inside of here, because we need to merge this text dynamically. So what we're doing is we write our prompts and we add template text inside of here. And we add it in such a parameter that's very unique to this specific part of the text. So we can use it as a template to replace it with dynamic text. We want to copy this here that we have selected, go on save. We add a filter of replace. We search for this. In the search, we search for content, the content tag here that we added inside of there. Now we go with replacement. We'll replace it with the input of content. That's how we add dynamic training context to our AI model. Here you go. And then the user prompt will be, just the input prompt. So user will be the input prompt. Then we got the model here. That's the reflection. We got max tokens. We keep those things as they are. That looks good. Maybe we want to do the timeout to 30 seconds so that we don't time it out. And now we have the stream inside of here. Now, what this stream is doing, if I were to run this here, right? If I were to put content in here, Toddle, the NoCode tool, and prompt block, right? You would see I'm getting nothing back. But what we would need to do is we would need to return the stream data. Now, this is normally not how API works, but bear with me. Under here, we're adding a loop. There are multiple kinds of loops in Xano. We're looking for a for each loop. We'll click on the for each loop. We go on list. The list will be the stream because the stream data will come back as a list. We set this as item. We'll save this. We'll add a function inside of here. Let's, for debugging purposes, add a stop and debug. And we want to return item. Now, when I run this, as you can see, I'm getting, this item back with an error opening stream. Why is that? We need to go back to the system prompt to hyperbolic, and we need to go in here where it says all the way down here, stream. We need to make stream true. I completely forgot about that, so please excuse me for not bringing that up earlier, but that's what we need to do. Let's save that. Let's try that again. Here you go. Still have an error opening the stream, but now we'll just debug this step by step. Let's make sure to reload Xano, and let's see what's going wrong with here. We got that API. It's a post request. We got messages. We got that content. We got that in here. We got that model. That all looks good. We got stream true. We got the API key. Here you go, application JSON. That looks all good. Here you go. Let's save that. And in here, let's just actually try running this. Let's go in here. Let's go and add function. Let's add stream. streaming API response. We add that streaming API response. That's what sends the data back to our server, to our front end, to Toddle, and the value will be the item. Let's run this. Error opening stream. Now, this is something that can happen sometimes to AI models if you use cloud providers like Toddle, which is a downside of using something like this. Now, not that, like Xano, not Toddle, Xano. I assume there may be the possibility where Hyperbolic doesn't allow API requests from a Xano server. Sometimes this can happen in programming, and that's normal. Let's deactivate this, and here's a simple way how we can test if that's true. Let's add a normal API request, external API request. We'll import the curl. We go to Hyperbolic. We'll copy that inside of here. We go back to Xano and paste that. We'll import this. Now this all looks good. We'll just have it like this. We'll move it up here. Under here, we'll add a stop and debug. We'll return API 1. We'll save this. We'll run the request. And now you see what we get. Error. Only, so we are using a model. They give us an error back. Let's see. Only meta lambda 3.1 instruct. So here you go. This API model that they gave us the instructions for to run doesn't work. That's why we get that error opening the stream. So sometimes it's the AI companies that mess up. So let's try a different model here. Let's try, I don't know, maybe they don't support streaming. So let's try Llama 3.2. I know that one supports streaming. Let's copy that. And we see in here we have the Llama 3.2. And we have the messages and all that stuff. We'll copy that model name. Let's go to our normal API call. We use that for debugging. We scroll down. We go to the model. We'll paste that in here. We'll update that. Let's save that and let's run this. Now, as you can see, it's running longer. That's usually a good sign. And you see, it's going to, it's going to return us this information. Here you go. Pretty cool, right? So we get that, and we get the response here. So now we can deactivate this and activate this. We can activate the streaming again, right? And now what we just only have to do, we have to go to the model here, and we have to replace the model with a different one that is supported. Let's try running this again. You see it takes a long time. That's a good step. And you see we are getting the streaming data back. Very, very, very cool. We get the streaming data back. That's exactly what we want to do. So now that we got the streaming data here, we want to simply just remove the stop and debug here. We'll delete that one. And what we want to do, we kind of like want to clean up the data, because you see that data is like pretty garbage. So we need to store it. We want to clean it up so it's easier for the front end, aka Toddle, to process. Let's do that right now. So what we want to do is does it give us markdown or not? We're bound to find that out later. I don't think it does, but that's not critical, right? We can just add that to the prompt, right? So we would go in here to, you are a smart AI to write an amazing blog posts in Markdown for following website. We'll update that. That should fix that part. So now we got the streaming response. Let's hide that for now. Let's add a stop and debug in here. And we stop and debug each streaming item. We'll move this up here. We'll move this up here. We'll run this again. And now we get that data. We want to clean up that data. Now, we see this part here, or this part here. That's preventing us from turning this into JSON to parse it easily. We copy this, and here's the thing. We create a variable, and we call this content. There you have it. And this content variable inside of here needs to be, we do the content variable, we base this on item, and we're going to add a filter of replacing this data colon space with nothing. That's it. We'll save that. So now we create this variable, right? Now I do my stop and debug and I return content, the content variable. Now we got rid of that thing. Now we got this here and we can convert this to JSON. So we go inside of here and under this filter, we add another filter of JSON decode. We'll save this. And now we got it in JSON format, right? That's like the format Zapier works in too. So we have chat completion chunk. That's the object type that we get inside of here. Now let's actually hide those and let's just look at the whole streaming response while activating the API streaming response, because we want to make sure that we are prepared for the last one, because the last one is probably giving us a different parameter. So there are a lot of ones. I shouldn't probably have it tell me to write a blog post because we're scrolling now for some time here, but bear with me, please. Here you go. Let's continue. Patience is key. Here you go. 19 more. Okay, so you see the last one is chat completion chunk, okay? And we have stop, finish, prompt, object, finished reason, stop, finished reason null. So we look for finished reason stop here. Let's keep that in mind. Let's copy this, because then this is how we know to kind of like stop the stream. But again, we don't really need that, but we need it to avoid some errors being logged. So let's activate this again inside of here, and let's have that stop and debug running, right? So we seem to be good on that front. Now we see in here, we have choices, right? We have choices, delta, content. So in this content piece here, I'll add a filter of get. I'll be getting choices. Here you go. I'll be getting choices. Now in here, we see we get the choices. Now we need to get delta. So I go on the content, I add another filter, I'll add get, and I'll get delta. We'll update that one. I'll run again. Now we get that. Now I want to get content. Let's copy content. Let's go to the content variable. We add a filter of get. We're getting that piece, and we're getting content. Now I see the first content is of course empty, but we get content. That's exactly what we want to return. Now we want to move the stop and debug though over here, run it again. Because, we need to return item here. Pardon me. Here you go. We'll run that again. And here you go. We have, we kind of like need to do that cleanup again. So let's actually create another variable over here. We call this one content. And this is just the content variable where we will remove the get filters, because I need to look at the stop reason here. Here you go. And let's return content here. Yeah. So now we see this thing called finish reason, right? Finish reason stop or something like this. We only have content in here if we have a finish reason of null, as you can see. Let's copy this payload, and this in here, this response will only need to be sent at a specific parameter. So in here, I add a conditional, and I click on the pen to edit the condition. The condition will need to be content, subpath. I'll paste my payload that we copied before. I click on define. I expand on that. I go on choices, and I go on finish reason equals null. That's exactly what we're doing inside of here. And then in here, we move this under the content because we base it on content. If that finish reason equals null, we're creating our new content variable, and then we're streaming the response, not of item, but of content. There you have it. Now we can remove the stop and debug down here. And now let's see what we're trying to stream back. Oh, here you go. Choices.finish reason. Not all of them have that. Okay, so that is actually where we may get some trouble because not all of them have this parameter. Let's see. Do we get trouble if we delete this one, move this one over here, move this one over here, and hide this one? Because the idea is we're getting those errors. Let's see. Now they all give us null, which is not looking that good. So let's delete that and let's, try debugging this a little bit more. This is kind of like how development works. We're moving in multiple steps. Not all of them are leading forward. Here you go. Let's try removing content. Let's just look if we're logging the delta parts, right? Let's see. And you see we do have content inside of here, right? We have content, unlock. So we want to copy this content, right? We should be able to add another get filter on here, right? Where we get the content, as you can see inside of here. But we're getting a bunch of nulls. So let's remove the get filters in here. There is another simpler way to do this using subpaths inside of Xano. Let's also remove choices here. Let's just create this variable like this. We'll run that, right? Now we just get the stream back of JSON. But we can actually now, we get that stream back of JSON. So let's add a stop and debug in here. Let's return content. We'll run that. Here you go. Let's copy this. Let's go to the streaming response of content. And we go in here, add a subpath on content. We'll paste this one, click on define, expand, and we expand on choices, and we expand on delta, and we click on content. Here, we're using subpaths. This is how Xano does it with dot notation. Now, when I delete the stop and debug and run this again, I should get a stream. And again, not all of them have it. That was my issue before. So let's just return all dot choices and remove that. And I want to see if all of them have, not everyone has choices, right? So we want to delete this one again. And let's have the stream back. We want to see how do the ones look that don't have choices. Now they all kind of like return the input of content. I don't want that. I want the content variable here. Let's run that. Takes a little bit. Okay, so the first one, it does have choices. Here you go. Now, this one does have choices. This one does have choices. So they all have choices here. I assume the last one probably doesn't have choices. Now that we have it as JSON, it's easier to look at it. So let's scroll down here. That's the nice thing about development. Sometimes it doesn't work the way we think it will work, but we'll find another way to make it work. That's the beautiful thing about it. Here you go. Let's scroll all the way down here. They should have like a button scroll to the end or something. Look at that. We're scrolling all the time here. Okay. Bear with me. We'll get there. Here you go. Now we're at 200. Just a little bit. This is kind of like what creates this effect like, oh, like the AI is typing, that's what the streaming, that's how it looks on the back end, right? But we'll scroll all the way down here. Here you go. Now we're at the last 31. That looks great. Here you go. So the last one, you see, the last one actually does have choices, which is very surprising. The last one does have choices. Very interesting. The last one has choices. Does it have a choices item? Yeah, it does have content inside of choices. That is very interesting. Not everyone has choices. Very interesting. Okay. I thought it would be like ChatGPT where they give us like this in the bracket saying done. We could try that. Let's add a conditional. If we go inside of here, if we look at content, or if we look at item, doesn't equal, and we do this done. That's how ChatGPT does it. Hyperbolic doesn't have that great of a documentation. But if we move the variable inside of here, and then we return the stream, and we only return the stream if it doesn't equal done. That's kind of like how you have to do it with ChatGPT. Let's see how that does it. That should return the response, yeah? So then we should be able to return .choices, right? Let's go in here, and let's go to the response, and we do .choices. Let's see if that returns that or if that throws in an error. So it does throw in an error because there's one that doesn't have choices, which is so weird because it's probably somewhere in the middle or something like that. We can't really identify where it is. So here you go. Let's do development hack 101. Let's remove the prompt. Let's say, hey, because we don't want too much to search through. Let's run this again. Let's remove this .choices. We'll save this. We'll run again. I'm returning the wrong content again because I need to return the variable called content. Okay, so we have here choices. We have 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 choices. We do have choices. Oh shit, we got so many. Let's make the system prompt. Hey, let's run this again because I just want to go through a little bit of data to understand what's going on here. Yeah, so we do have choices. Why does it give me so many? Like, come on. Let's say like, say hello, respond, say hello, respond with one word only. Let's see. It gives me like 400 things. It could be because we're using a model with thinking tokens. That could be the issue. Because we have a model with thinking tokens, the downside is, so if I go to demo, I say, hey, it creates those thinking tokens, and they cause a lot of token credit usage. So if we were to go and use Llama 3.1 as an example here, right, which doesn't create thinking tokens, and we go to the API, and we change the type of model that we're using here, right? It's just a theory. We should be able to get, not so long responses. So let's go inside of here. Let's change the model that we're using. We'll paste that inside of here. We'll update that. We'll save this. We'll run this again. Let's see. Oh God, this is taking so long. I don't like that. Okay. It's taking a long time to stream, but it's still giving me such a long response. Data blogging. here are some ideas to get you started. Now it gives me this ultra long responses. I don't know why that is. Let's remove the replacement of content. Let's even remove the whole kind of like the whole system prompt, right? Just for now, because I want to look at how the data looks that we're sending back. Then we go role user, right? We go to the role user. We have the user prompt in here. Let's save that. Let's say, oh, that's the content. Okay, we did update that. Let's make the content empty. Let's go with the prompt. Let's say, hey, I just wanted to give us a short response so we can look at how the data is parsed. Okay, 14. I can work with that. Here you go. So we have choices in here, right? We have choices in here. We have choices inside of here. We also do have choices inside of here. This one has choices. This one has choices. This one has choices. Choices. We got choices inside of here as well. We got choices. We got 14 more. I assume that they have choices too. Choices. 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 Yeah, they got choices too. Let's look at the last one here. The last one does have choices. This one has choices, which is completely understandable. Why, if we return choices, it says there are no choices, right? This is kind of like very interesting. Not really explainable, but that's sometimes how technology is. Let's see if I go to streaming API response and I do dot choices. Oh, here's the thing. If I do dot choices, you see how it jumps it back to input? This is because the input is called content and the variable is called content. So I need to scroll all the way down here and make this const. I should make this variable. So the easiest way to fix that is to call this stream underscore item and have a different name for that, because that redundancy is causing that issue here. So now if the streaming response is stream item dot content, right? This should, it's called actually choices, not content. If I do dot choices and I save this again and I run, it's going to give me that response, right? Then we need to add again in here dot delta. So we target the delta. We'll save that. We'll run that again. Okay, so that was my mistake. It are actually kind of like Xano's mistake, because like Xano was, like doing that stuff. Let's go back to the response. We do dot content, and that's how we get the raw content sent to Toddle. We'll save that. We'll run this again, and now we see we got a list of, list items here. While we got list items, we do need to do choices 0 dot. So we get the first one. Here you go. Oh, actually, choices dot 0 seems to be the issue. Let's try choices, right? And choices is an array. You got choices here. You got choices here. Is there one choices that is an empty item that may be causing that error? Let's see. We got choices, choices. 12 more choices, choices. We got all choices here. Okay. So how about in here on that streaming response, we add a filter of first. Here you go. That gives us the first item here. So what we can do is we can use a get filter of choices and a first filter. We go on the stream item. We use a get filter of choices. Here you go. And after choices, we'll add a filter of first on that variable, and then we'll update that. And now let's try returning without a filter on the streaming response, stream item. This should work. Here you go. It gives us the same error again, which is interesting. Choices. They don't seem to all have choices. So this is interesting. We see that we have this error. If we try to do it in one variable, we get an issue. How about we create a new variable then, and we call this response, and we go in here, stream item dot choices. Does that work? Let's see. And if the response will be choices here, let's run that again. Okay, that seems to work. And then I can go on the response. I add a filter of first on the array filter. Does that work? So we get rid of that having an array and an array for individual items. Okay, beautiful. So now can we go inside of here and use a get filter for delta? That's where the data is in. Let's see if that works. Okay, that does work. So how about now? Oh, you see the first one has a role of assistant. And when I now try to get, this is why I want to look at that data. The first one doesn't have content. So now when I go in here and add a filter of get content, right? It's going to throw me the error because the first one doesn't have content available. Look at that. Look at that right here. Or actually, I did it on the wrong one. Get content, delta. Actually, I don't think I can set them double inside of Xano. So I would have to copy content here, and the response would need to have to return response.content as an example. We're getting an error now. You see that? Because the role, if the role of this item, if we have a role parameter inside of here that has this, we get an issue. So this is very interesting. I would love to return the stream item inside of here and take a better look at the first item. The first item does have choices, but it has delta role, as you can see in here. So it does have choices, chat completion chunk. So we do have, this is chat completion chunk. We have choices, and we then do have the usage. So if I go to choices, I look at delta role, and here delta content. Okay. So this is an unconventional way to start that, how this API is working, but we'll respect how they built that thing. So what we need to do is we need to look at .delta here. Let's go under here and let's create a variable called check, right? We go inside of here on the stream item, we do .delta, and now I want to go in here on the check. I want to add a stop and debug on here for check as an example. We'll save that. We'll run this again. Not all of them have .delta because we need to get the choices first, right? So we need to do .choices. And we do have that in the response down here. So let's actually remove the check one. Let's add the stop and debug on response, right? Let's see. So we have a response here that's role assistant. Let's do something in here. Let's make a stop and debug. If I were to take this response and if I were to JSON stringify it, or let's see, because we want to have a filter. We don't want those to be sent because they are empty. They cause mail formatting inside of here. So let's create a variable here called check, and then this check will be a response, and we add in here a filter of JSON, or we do we do JSON encode to have it as JSON text, right? And then I want to return in the stop and debug the check one. We'll run this, and we see role assistant. This is how it looks if this message shouldn't be counted. So under here, we'll add a conditional to look for if check does not equal role assistant like this, then we're going to stream the response with the stream item, and then we need to define some of that stuff where we do stream item, or actually we need to do response here. We need to return response dot content. Now we can remove the stop and debug. Let's try that. That should not cause any errors. And that's how we do it. We got the event stream of text content. There you have it. Why is that? Because what happened is Xano was looking for content. The first one didn't have content, so Xano wanted to do us a favor and throw in an error. But that interrupted the whole stream of events. So we built this condition here to create this check variable that turns the response that's already the content type, the delta, right? And we turn it into text, not JSON. And then we look, does check not equal this specific string? Because we know if it looks like this, we don't want to send a real-time event. And then we only send the real-time event if it doesn't equal it like that. So we'll publish that. That's how we do it. And then now we want to bring back to that API our prompt to make it write blog posts. So we activate that again. We go inside of the content thing here. No expressions, they're shit. Change type. And we activate this. And now I say, write a blog post in Markdown about this website. And then we go in here, we do content. Here you go, and we search, we do the text replacement for content. We'll update that, we'll save this, we'll publish this, and then, in here I can add my content, Toddle, and the prompt is NoCode. Let's run this. And now we should get in the full event stream of a Markdown text. So we get that streaming kind of feeling back from the AI. It will take a little bit. It would stream in real time. Xano doesn't show it to us in real time though. So that's something I want to point out so that we are aware of that. But real time is a pretty cool thing. It'll take a little bit. ChatGPT takes a little bit too. It's just said that we can't see it because then it would just look way cooler and way better. But we should receive an event stream, so this list of content at the end of that. And that is what streams back, because each item will be sent separately and individually. Here you go. And we got this whole event stream of Markdown. Beautiful. So now we're able to plug this in inside of Toddle. Let's copy the endpoint URL. Let's go inside of Toddle here. And let's go and create a new API. We'll paste this URL inside of here. We go on continue. This one is a post request. That's what we need to have. And we have in here headers. We need to set the body though to send data to it. Because as you can see inside of here, we have content and prompt. So for that, we go to the body, we go on FX, we add an object, and we add inside of here content, and we add prompt. We go to content, we bind this to the scraper API data. That will be our content, right? That will come from the scraper API. And then the prompt will be the variable with the prompt. There you have it. And I'll call that AI. Here you go. There you have it. And we got that all in the body inside of here. So now we need to go and change that API type a little bit. Let's go to advanced. Let's go inside of here. We want to remove server-side rendering. and we want to go on response parsing, this will be an event stream, as you can see. Now when I run this request, you'll see that it gives us the streaming messages back. There you have it. So now we can work with that. So what we want to do is the moment the user submits this form, we want to run the AI and open a modal where we see the AI starting to type our blog post. So for that, let's first create the modal UI for that. We go into this div, we add another div, we'll move the div block all the way up here, and I can just give this a different tag name of modal. This is kind of like a pop-up. We'll make this width 100%, height 100%, and now we make it absolute so it layers it over it. We want to make sure the z-index is 99, so it's all the way on the top, and then we want to go inside of here with the background. We want to make it white, like 50% opacity, and then we go to the CSS part and we add backdrop minus filter colon blur 50 px for pixels. That's how we kind of like get this cool blur effect. We'll add a side padding of 2 rem, a top and bottom padding of 2 rem as well. We'll center it, and then inside of here we want to add the markdown block from Toddle. We go to packages, we're searching for markdown. We'll install the markdown block in the Toddle packages. Here you go. We go on plus, we go on components, and we add the markdown block. Now we got the markdown block inside of here, and we copy that. This one will need to be in the modal. Here you go. Now we need to bind that markdown block to the response. Because we do streaming, the response is a little bit different. We need to create a variable here called post or response that'll start empty. And the markdown block inside of here will be bound to this post variable. And what happens is every time we get a streaming event sent back from Xano, from our AI server, to the frontend, we'll take that content and we'll put it at the end of the text, and we'll take the new one and we put it at the end, and that is kind of like what creates this typing streaming effect that works like in real time magically. That doesn't have then API timeouts and all that stuff. So that's how that works. So now we get it bound to a variable. We now need to initialize that process, and we quite frankly need to create a variable to manage the state, to have this pop up open or closed. So let's go to variables. Let's call this pop up open. Default value will be false. We'll just keep it there for now. Here you go. I would also like to wrap this markdown block in an element, and that element would be with 90%, or let's make it 100%. Let's make the maximum width 30 rem, and we'll do the height 100%, and then we'll go with the background color. We'll make it, a little bit lighter, and we add a border inside of here, and all for gray 300, and we'll add a border radius of 15 pixels to this one. There you have it. Or actually, I don't think we need to have that border in here. Let's make this one a little bit more gray. Oh, too gray. There you have it. That looks good. Actually, let's just keep it. Let's just keep this only for structure, right? And then inside of here, in this modal, I want to add a button to close this modal, right? We go on here, we make that absolute, and now we want to make this this button in here should be absolute right 1 rem. And then we do top 1 rem. So it's up here, right? I want to have this be like an X. So let's go to like Relume icons as an example. We go to Relume icons. We look for a close icon. We'll copy that for Figma. And then when we copy it for Figma, we'll be able to go into the button and just paste it inside of here. Now I just go inside of here and I make this one like gray 100, and I go inside of here and I make it gray 700, and there you have it. And then I'll just remove the border here. Here you go. That's how we get that content in here and how we get it nicely streaming. And then inside of here, actually, inside of this modal, we should remove the top and bottom padding, actually. We only want to keep the side padding so that we got this full width. And inside of here, we add a 2rem top and bottom padding so it can scroll nicely up and down. And then we go in layout and we make overflow X clip, overscroll Y scroll. There you have it. That's kind of like how we built that interface. We can go on this button here to close it, remove the hover. Now I go this div to this modal here. We go on attributes and we need to create a class. Classes in Toddle help us manage state of elements. So we go to the classes here. We create a class of hidden. Then I go to styling for this element, create a style for the hidden class. For the hidden class, we make the placement -1, so it moves it in the background, and we make the opacity 0. Then we want this to nicely animate. So we go to the default style, we go to transition, and we make transition of all for 300 milliseconds. Then we got that transition. Now we need to make hidden true if pop-up open equals false. If it is false, it will be hidden. If it is true, it will be not hidden. Here you go. Now we want to go to this form in here, since most of that is now already connected. Or it should be some of it connected. Yeah, we got that all set up here. So what we want to do in here on this form, not the div, on the form, on this form we need to create an event, a form event here for submit. We need to keep prevent default. This will prevent the page from reloading after a form has been submitted. We'll go on plus, and now then we'll call the API. We have this thing on message. Let's really quick that we call this now at https://example.com. System prompt will be passionate block. We'll generate a post. Now it's starting to stream. We see this data coming in inside of here, right? I just want to run this so I have the data to work with it in the logic. Let's go to the submit. On message, we'll make this on message big here, because message is every time we get this real-time event sent back. We want to go and update our post variable. We go on the fx, we open our formula here. What we want to do is we want to take the current value of our post variable and we want to concatenate. What's concatenate? Concatenate means if I have 1 plus 1, it's not 2, it's 11. I take this piece of text and I put this piece of text after it. I want to now get the event data, or actually, I want to get, it's not event. I want to get to AI. I want to get to data every time I get that message. I want to take last of the array, and then I want to get data. And this one should log the data, because if I go in data here, you see I'm getting that. So this is what we want to do. Post concatenate output AI. We take the last one, because always the newest one added, right? And then we get the data part of that. That's how we append that inside of here on message. So we create this on message, and then on submit, on success, when meaning this API was sent. Actually, bad thing. Let's actually go before we call that API, or after we call that API. We go to pop-up open. We make this true, so it opens the pop-up. So now I got my domain example.com, passionate block. I click on generate blog post, and now you see it should start streaming inside of here. Look at that. You see, it is streaming the blog post and creating that properly. Pretty cool, right? Now, there is some improvements that can be made, right? Also, we probably want to prompt the AI to add like spacing and all that appropriate stuff, but it is pretty cool. It's working great. We got that AI stream back, but I don't like the lines, and the HTML block certainly has limitations. We may be better in using an HTML block here, right? So we could go to our packages, we go to HTML. That generally gives us a better experience because HTML has more flexibility in what we can do with it, especially when we work with CMS and all that kind of stuff. So we could go to this modal here, to this div, and in that div, I don't even need to look at that. I just know we add the HTML block, it will work perfectly. And then inside of here, I go to the HTML part and I make this the post. Now we just need to have this return HTML. So we want to go in here and we want to go to streaming API request 2 and we want to optimize the prompt. We want to go inside of here, make that big. We say write a blog post in HTML with HTML break, with HTML line breaks and nice formatting about this website. We'll save that, we'll update that, we'll save that again, we'll publish this to production, this endpoint, and now we'll reload our Toddle project, and we should have this web scraper / AI SaaS working inside of here. Let's put a website inside of here. So we have https://xano.com, and we do why NoCode wins. Generate blog post, and we should see it starts to stream. It does give us markdown, to be fair. That is interesting. It should give us HTML though. I mean, this is just me being bad at prompting, I would assume. Write a blog post in formatted HTML. How about we just do like respond in HTML. Respond in HTML. And here we'll save that and we'll publish that. Actually, it's HTML text, to be fair. So let's do in here, let's say respond in HTML text for my CMS. Let's publish that. And let's see, when I run this manually inside of here, let's see what it does. It should give us like basic HTML formatting, no markdown, but we may also need to refresh or try it in the browser. Let's see. Let's go also in here. Let's say https://toddle.com. We go on system prompt, short, generate blog post. Yeah, it doesn't give us HTML. That's not nice, but you get the idea. Interesting. It does not like HTML. Let's make this markdown again because it seems to like markdown. Let's do markdown block, and we'll map that markdown block to post. Here you go. And then we get it formatted. Now, spacing is off, but we'll do one thing at a time. Let's go to the proxy here. We want to go inside of here, right? And we say respond in markdown text for my CMS in formatted markdown without divider lines, because Toddle can't render them without divider lines. Here you go. We'll save that. We'll publish that. That should fix that part. Now, one thing I need to fix is if we look at the HTML stream inside of here again, right? If we look at this here at the API response, we see whenever it needs to add a space, we'll see that soon. whenever it should add a space, it sends empty data. It should send something that's like empty. Let's see, where do we have one? The rise of NoCode. Why NoCode is winning. Let's look at here. Why NoCode is the rise of NoCode. Why it... Oh. NoCode is winning. Where did it go? The rise of NoCode. Why it's winning. Why it's winning? We don't get empty events, as it seems. That's interesting. Let's look how Xano handles that, because maybe we need to improve some things on the Xano side. Inside of here, that is interesting. Here you go. So we sent that event stream. That seems to be working well. But I'm curious. Let's just remove this response here, right? We got that same prompt inside of here, right? So let's add a response, stream API response, because we need to make sure that we get the breaks working. So let's do stream item. And actually, we just return, yeah, we can do just like stream item. That's just like the formatted one. I want to look at all the JSON and look at the ones where we need to have breaks, because I assume that the hyperbolic API will give us a specific syntax and say, hey, here you need to add a break. And then I want to make sure to like add that in there as well when I need to make a break. So this is kind of like the level of complexity when you work with something with AI. It is pretty simple. It's just, trial and error and, patience. Patience is always key. And if you are doing something patient, I think you'll be very good at the way you do it. But we'll see. Let's see. Here you go. Now we got that. So we got this all working. And let's look at this request inside of here, right? It starts the heading here in the content. Now we say discover the power of no code with Toddle. Interesting. So their API doesn't seem to be the best one in adding breaks or returning content breaks, because you see there is no content break that it gave us, resulting in no breaks, right? So for that, I need to ask ChatGPT real quick. Let's ask, here you go. Let's say how to add content breaks like BR/ in Markdown, because it needs to adjust what it returns to us based on that. In Markdown, you can either break it at the end of the line followed by enter, or you can use HTML text directly within Markdown. Both methods will create a line break. So we could do the break one, possibly. Let's see. I want to see how that works. So let's try updating that variable here, right? So we go to post. We do hey, break, hey. That did add a break. You saw that for a moment? So we need to prompt our AI to add line breaks. Let's go in here. Let's go to our AI. Let's go in here. Let's make that big. Okay. Let's see. Respond in Markdown. Text. Respond in Markdown. Respond in Markdown. Here you go. Add breaks for paragraphs or other line breaks like this. For new lines. Add breaks for new lines or other line breaks like this. Okay, let's do write a nice blog post in formatted markdown without divider lines, but line breaks like and nice formatting about this website. And it's line breaks. Okay, here you go. We'll save that. We'll update that. And then this should work. This should be working now. We just need to then remove in here this streaming response, which we don't need because, you know, the AI needs to return it so that we can nicely render it on our front end with the appropriate line breaks. So let's go inside of here. Okay, let's go https://toddle.dev. We'll click outside of it, right? Here you go. It did that. And now I say nice post. We'll generate that. Is it responding? Is it still linked? No, it's not linked. That's the issue. Or it should be linked. Markdown is linked to post, right? And we got the AI that still works. Let's test it inside of Toddle. Here you go. Let's do https://example.com. Here you go. Let's say, hey. Or let's do short post. Generate blog post. Let's click outside of here. Let's look at the API. It's still loading. It doesn't seem to be streaming the response. So let's look at that. Maybe I removed something important. Yeah, I need to activate the streaming response. That's why we're not getting any data. Here you go. Let's reload that now. This will work beautifully. Let's go in here. Let's do https://toddle.dev inside of here. And now I can create a blog post, short post. We'll generate the blog post, and now it should start streaming. Here you go. Oh. This is the markdown block. It is giving us some sort of markdown. Here you go. Simple markdown, maybe. Let's optimize the post. It's always hard to tell AI what to do, but you see it's working. Respond in simple markdown for my CMS. We'll save that for my CMS. We'll update that. We'll publish that, and let's see if that gives us a better format here. But we see we got the streaming functionality working inside of Toddle. Now it's about fine-tuning the general functionality. Let's go in here, https://xano.com. Oh, TTPS, and we'll do short post. We'll paste that inside of here. Here you go. Yeah. Now I actually want to have 2 line breaks, but you see now we get the formatting working, and you see how great that works. Now the HTML block doesn't support all formatting. It doesn't seem to do like the cursive ones, So we need to adjust it a little bit to make it work with that. This is just a limitation of the Toddle HTML block, but you know, they're improving on that, and it's an unofficial package. So let's improve our prompt to make it work nice with that. Let's make that big. We need to do double break. Here you go. Let's respond in simple, add new line breaks. Like, here you go. Like a block in formatted markdown. Add new two, add 2 breaks for new lines or other line breaks like this. Here you go. But line breaks, like, and we'll save that and we'll update that. We'll save this. We'll publish this. That should do the thing. That should make the formatting nicer. I also need to add no cursive, just because Toddle doesn't support it apparently. But we'll put the website in here, https://toddle.dev. We'll say short post. We'll generate the blog post here, right? Okay, so as you can see, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. We need to emphasize on simple markdown with no headings. Just, you know, simple markdown. Let's say respond in simple markdown for my very simple markdown for my CMS. We do in here no cursive, only no headings, no bullet points. We'll save that here. We'll update that. We'll save this. We'll publish this. We'll run again. Or actually, we want to run this on the front end to see how it looks on there. Here you go. We'll put in here https://xano.com, right? And then we do short post, generate blog post. It doesn't follow the prompt too concise. It's just because we use an open source model and it's not that smart. But you see it streams. It just doesn't follow my guidance too badly. And it writes a blog post. Actually, it does add key features inside of here, right? So I got to give it the benefit of the doubt. This is just a heck of a long paragraph that it gave us here. And spaces are not properly interpreted. There is more fine-tuning that needs to be done. I would like to have formatting nicer. We need to improve the prompt. This is all about prompt engineering here. You see, it was worse at the beginning. We need to improve it. Respond in very simple markdown for my CMS. No cursive, no headings, no bullet points. No cursive, no headings, no bullet points. Or we can actually add bullet points. I think they support that. No cursive, no headings, no HTML headings, right? HTML headings. Let's say add 2 line breaks for new paragraphs. Like here, and then say add 1 line break for sentence breaks in for necessary breaks in paragraphs, like, or just add a space, like, and then we add a space. Here you go. So we gotta really explain it, what it needs to do. It's like a child. We'll publish that again, and then we'll just improve it, we'll make it better and better and better and better. But that's the general idea. Let's put in here https colon, we'll do https colon / toddle.dev. We'll do in here short post. We'll generate the post, and now you see it streams through. Building software in Toddle is designed for professionals aiming, here you go, like React. With Toddle, you can get an intuitive visual interface that prioritizes performance. Here you go. So it did generate something. You saw it streamed through. Now I want to be able to close this. So I go on this button, on click. We'll go on pop-up open. We'll make this false. And then we also want to wipe it out. So we add a little sleep of like 300 milliseconds for it to fully close. And then on tick, meaning after it was closed, we'll take the post and we'll wipe that off or wipe that out. Here you go. So now we got the functionality. I can go https colon / Xano.com. I can do short markdown post, generate blog post. You see the little preview down here, and now it starts typing. It starts streaming in here beautifully. I would though render this, the content block is not, like the markdown block is not perfect. We don't, we need to add more documentation for the markdown stuff inside of the AI, and we need to have a better markdown block, right? Because that is not properly rendering the way it should be. It should probably be like a div block that's content editable. But this adds more complexity. Those things, div blocks, content editable stuff, those are the things we focus on at nocodeproco.com, right? This is a public package here. So, this is, you can customize this to your liking. And then I close it, right? It would then generate something new. It would start, again, you see, like with a blank canvas, and generate a new blog post for me, right? Now, we didn't get the markdown to render how we would like to, but, we got it somewhat working. Sadly, that the markdown block doesn't work that well. Let's just, simplify this. We should probably make that write a post in formatted markdown without divider lines, but line breaks like or spaces like, and then we just remove all that junk up here, because I think the more freedom we give it, the better it is. And then we'll say follow general markdown best practices. We'll update that. We'll save. We'll publish in here. And now we'll reload that inside of Toddle, and we can try this out ourselves. So I go in here, https colon / Xano.com, right? So we can scrape Xano. We see Xano is scraped. And then we do positive voice. We'll generate the blog post, and now you see it starts typing here in Markdown. And it adds an image. Okay. So you see it does some formatting. Their Markdown block is probably not as advanced as we would like to have it represented here, but I think it does a good solid thing. And then you don't have the headings and all that. But it does a decent job in rendering that. Not too decent, but it does a good job. I think with HTML we would have less of that stuff, how it should not be formatted. But I think we're getting pretty close here. And building this as your first application, right, that, kind of like is there to test as your first useless app that actually does have, some use, is pretty cool. I do think we'll be way better off if we just render this as normal plain text. Let's actually do that. Because I think it will be just way better making this plain text. Let's go in here. Because I want to, make it simple. We can still render it in the markdown block if we want. But there's no need for it to do that. We'll say, write a blog post in formatted plain text about this website. Here you go. We'll save that. We'll publish. Let's see what it does inside of here. Let's reload that. Let's see how this looks. And then we can just replace the markdown text here, right? To add a normal text block inside of here and bind that to the post variable. So now we should be able to open this inside of Toddle. And we'll do https://example.com. And we'll do short post. We'll generate the blog post. Still does markdown. I love that AI doesn't do what you want it to do. But you get the idea. It gives you something back. How about we use a better model? I don't want this to not be successful when we leave. Let's use a better model. Let's use deep. No. Can we use that one? Let's try that one. We have stream in that, so that looks promising. DeepSeek. Let's copy that one. Maybe that one is better at understanding what I wanted to do. If not, you can always use ChatGPT, right? We shouldn't be cheap on that. We need to have a good AI model that actually does what we want it to do. Let's update that and let's publish that inside of here. Let's reload that here. Let's see. Let's open that app. Yeah, we updated that. Let's do https://example. Let's do https://superbase.com. Let's see if it actually can scrape superbase.com. Oh yeah, it did scrape Superbase. Let's see why it's better than Firebase. We'll generate the blog post. It does not seem that this model supports streaming, as you can see. Let's try another model. Let's try the Llama 3.2 again, or that may actually work now. Let's try. Let's go in here on the API, right? We'll replace that model with a new Llama. And that is also the faster one, right? So that should also be pretty fast. I like that this gives us like spaces and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that looks promising. Let's try reloading that, but it still gives us markdown. I should put like no markdown, no HTML. Write a block in formatted, in plain text. Maybe I remove formatting because it thinks it can just format that thing. Let's try that. Let's reload that here, actually. I want just as plain as it can get. Still does markdown. Let's go in here. Let's say write a block in plain text about this website. No markdown. No HTML. No bold. No formatting. Besides spacing. We'll save that. We'll update that. We'll publish this. It's like we're working with ChatGPT 3. Let's put that again here. https://xano.com. We'll put short block. Here you go. That's faster. Look at that. It still gives us wrong format, but look how fast that streams inside of here, right? So, you know, it streams. This is how streaming in Toddle works. This is how you can build your AI micro SaaS in Toddle. It does work, but we need to have better ways to render Markdown inside of Toddle, to render those kinds of things. They should work natively, and we need to have better functionality in terms of prompt engineering with those open source models so that they can give us more accurate results, right? You're not going to build something in 2 hours that will be super precise, super, perfect with everything. But it is cool that you can build this yourself. And this is a great useless app that is not that useless, right? You can add streaming inside of Toddle. Now, you should probably use better models like Claude, like ChatGPT that know what they do. But on the other side, if I go back to Hyperbolic and I refresh the site, with all those generations, we only spent a few cents. With ChatGPT, this would have been already $1. So it is certainly way cheaper. But the question is, it's not Markdown. Maybe if there would be in the Markdown block, it would look better because it's in the normal text block now. But it isn't listening, right? Because I said no Markdown, it does Markdown, it does formatting. But yeah, this is how you make a micro SaaS inside of Toddle. Now, there are more things that you can do, right? You can prevent this button from being clicked before it has scraped the website and all that kind of stuff. But, those are things we can go into all the details. It will take at least 1 to 2 weeks to build a SaaS, to build an application inside of Toddle. NoCode. NoCode is fast. It's faster than development. But it's not the fastest, right? It's not as fast as, you click a button and you're done. It takes some effort. It takes some time to build it. And if you want the right support to build those crazy ideas, to get that vision out there, I would highly suggest you to look into NoCodeProCode.com, right? It's the best place to learn and build faster in Xano and Toddle. We have dozens and dozens and dozens of hours of courses to help you build your own AI SaaS, to help you build your own web app, to help you build whatever it is you want to build. We have over 60 happy students, happy users, from agency owners to professional developers. Everybody's using it. And, freelancers and entrepreneurs, everybody's doing it. And if you want to join, submit a little application video and you'll be receiving your invite within 12 hours. It's only $79 a month. It is pretty reasonably priced, and you'll get access to dozens of templates, pre-made templates for AI SaaS businesses. If I go to the tokens template as an example here, this is a template, it's just played around with it a few seconds ago. But this is a template, or actually, why is that not loading? Oh, this is loading because I changed my API key and I'm on the public one and I didn't want you to use my API key. But the idea is this is like a full template here for pre-made AI SaaS, right? You can subscribe to the plan. You can click on here. It opens the checkout, right? And all that kind of stuff. And then when I purchase it, it's going to add the credits inside of here. I can add more credits. I can go to the billing center. I can get support. I can go to the billing center and I can go to, have an overview page. It's fully responsive, by the way. If I inspect elements in here, right? Look at that. It's fully responsive as well. So we got those templates. We got a few of those templates inside of NoCode ProCode. We got daily office hours. So if that's something that interests you, I would highly suggest you to look in that. The link for that is in the video description below. I would love to see you on the inside. But yeah, this is how you can make a little useless AI SaaS, little micro SaaS inside of Toddle. Will this be successful? Probably not. But does this give you the inspiration and the confirmation that the big thing that you want to build in Toddle is possible? It should certainly do that. And the fact that it is possible, that shows you that you can aim for that big idea. But how about first you build something little that's useless like we did today? So happy building useless apps inside of Toddle. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate that. And yeah, see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.